What's up, y'all? On today's little episode of Ethan the Fence Man, we're working on the old 97 Vic. We have a new idler pulley and a tensioner. We have a tensioner because we were going to replace the other idler pulley, the guy on the tensioner, and it was like $10 or $15 more just to get the whole tensioner. And our tensioner is original from 1997, so we figured mazel, fire the parts cannon off. But first, before we get into that, this video will also entail how to change a taillight on a Aerobody style Crown Victoria. So this should apply to everything from 1992 up to 1997. See, we got both ends. But I noticed, on account of the old lady got rear-ended by a hit-and-run driver the other day, probably tell you about that later, the left side tail light turn indicator guy's blown out since then. By the way, the car took the hit pretty good, if you can't tell. Yeah, it got rear-ended. Like really, really hard too. But anyway, I thought it was interesting what's involved in changing the taillight, so I figured I'd drag your fellers over here and show you on about it, because I haven't done it before, which is interesting because we've owned this car like several years and I've never had to change a taillight bulb. So those things are good. But you'll see when you get into your trunk, this is what it looks like. Over there, you have one twisty guy, and then over in this corner, there's a second twist 'em off guy. And then you can pull the carpet back like so, and you'll see I have in my little pile over there, there is 4 big twist-on nuts that go here and there and over here, and one more there, and those are what holds the tail light in. You may see the other nut over here. Don't worry about that. She holds the back bumper on. And right down here, there's this one electrical connection that plumbs to all your different lights. I think there's 4 of them. So it unplugs from right there. And then when you take your nuts off, you'll want to go through here and see this plug is like pulled out. The grommet makes a seal in here. You'll go around the edge with your fingers, pop it in the little hole, and then after you wiggle back and forth quite a bit because they've been in place a long time, your whole taillight assembly will slide out. Yay! Adjust like so. Then we can come back, fish our cord through the hole, and the whole assembly will slide out of the way. And now that we have that out of the way, before we put the new bulb in and put it back in place, we'll come in here and clean out real good on our gutterway. I reckon that would explain the extra sealage that they put around those nuts, around these holes. That must be why they did that from the factory, trying to prevent that rainwater from running inside the trunk. So that's kind of a dumb place for that fastener. But anyway, we'll clean all that up really good before we put it back together. And now here on the back side of the taillight housing, ew, my goodness. Just get that out of the way. And then we can just twist the guy and pull our blown bulb out. And then, if I don't have the appropriate light bulb in my collection over here, we'll get to take advantage of our spare parts car again, because its taillight bulbs work. At least one of the 5 or 8 or 10 of them it's got back there does. Right. Now here's our blown out nasty old bulb. It's actually only like partially blown out, because when I was behind the old lady in traffic yesterday, I seen there was no light, and when I pulled the car into the shop today, the light worked. So, but you can tell that it's no good based on the way that it is, and the fact that she's all burned up and the plastic's all hot and meltified. Ew, it's a 3157. Alright, well this was interesting. So in me old light bulb hoard up here, I had a couple bulbs that look identical to the ones that came out of the tail light. They were 3157s have... Quit. You're being rude. Anyway, and the bulbs that I have hanging up here are 4157s. But they look like the same style bulbs, so I googled on it, and the 4157 part number just superseded the 3157 on account of they redesigned the bulb, probably different filaments and bits, so it's brighter and it lasts longer. So yep, perfectly fine to swap the 4157s in place of the 3157s. Now that we've cleaned up that mess that was under the tail light or whole gutterway there, and the back side of the light's pretty clean now, and we replaced our two 3157s with 4157s, now we can pop the tail light back into place and then step back and see if the left light's noticeably brighter than the right light. Probably will be. You might be able to see, if it shows up on camera, it's also like a little bit of daylight out. Not too much, but a little bit of daylight. She's raining. But yeah, they went off now, but that left side's definitely quite a bit brighter than the right side. So we'll be getting some more of the 4157s from the O'Reillys to get both sides brighter. That might help with our getting rear-ended if we got brighter taillights. Oh, and by the way, speaking of getting rear-ended and taillights, these lights are really tough, because it looks like whoever hit her, you could see where their front license plate mount hit and left an indent in our bumper, but their car like collapsed over that bumper, and there's a mark on the deck lid of the trunk, and you can tell like their hood or something, the rest of their car hit this tail light. There's a crack on this one. You might be able to see, it may not show up, but there's a triangle here and a crack straight across that line. And also right up in here you'll see the end of this plastic and that mark on the car body there. They hit that tail light hard enough to flex it all up and slam it into the body, and it didn't break it. It only knocked one of the bulbs out. So that's a tough tail light there, fellers. Right? Okay. You may be able to hear me, but we're finished up at the back of the car for right now, because that's all the new taillight bulbs that I had laying around. Now we're moving forward with our new tensioner and idler pulley. And the reason we're replacing those is because I noticed when the car's under load, like pulling up a hill on the highway, it makes a little like crickety bearing noise. So we pulled over at our local O'Reilly's and I opened the hood and grabbed this idler pulley. You may be able to see here, but she wobbles back and forth, and the bolt isn't loose. The inner bearing is staying in place, but the outer bearing has a bunch of play in it. So I bet you that's where our noise is. And it's just silly not to replace the other spinny bit while we're in there, so that's why the new tensioner is going in. So to get this swapped, all we have to do is pull the two 8mm bolts, unplug it first, unplug our electric cooling fan that's hidden away inside there. Then we can pull that shroud out. On your 97 Crown Vic, there's going to be a little panel that slides under the shroud. You'll have to slide that out to get your shroud out. It's not the same in my case because this fan shroud came out of a 92 and she's different. But anyhow, I'll get that removed now that we have both of our fans removed, which was just 2 bolts and our little Ford cooling fan removal guy. Now we can come down in here and we're going to put our 1/2 inch breaker bar over here, release the tension on this belt by pushing down on it. Then we can slip the belt off, probably up here at the alternator, and then we're free to pull this bolt and the 3 bolts that hold the tensioner on off. Now that's what it looks like when you pull that tensioner and the idler off. See, there they are, comparison. I believe you can tell by the style of the pulley here that these are original equipment. She's got the old school beveled edge. Most all the modern pulleys are, you know, that cheaper shape. Yeah. Now we'll pop it back on. Now we've got a new tensioner and idler pulley, and we shouldn't make the clink, 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 squeak, 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 squeak noise when we're going up the hill now. Now I just gotta clean up my mess and put the fans back in. Put the one fan back on and the other fan back in. Now we have our mechanical cooling fan reinstalled on the water pump, and our fan shroud and our electronic cooling fan reinstalled and plugged back into the harness. Oh, but wait, there's one more really important thing. Down here, my lower radiator hose is supported by that plastic stub off the fan shroud, and we can't. I can't see it. And we can't forget to trim the zip tie tail off. Now she's classy work. Alright. Now that wraps up this wonderfully wet serpentine idler pulley tensioner taillight video. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you later.